All right, what's up, Scribe Squad? It's another day, it's another dollar, and it's time for another interview. And this time around, we got somebody who was a tour buddy of mine. You know what I'm saying? He's got hella bars, super duper creative. He's from the 702, you know what I'm saying? Vegas, you know, UNLV Young Rebel. That's me. So,
Hey, I forgot about that.
yeah, that part, right? Make some noise for Ekoh. Ekoh, say what's up to the people real quick.
What up, everybody? How's it going? Thanks for having me. Stoked to be here.
I'm super happy we have you here on the channel. You actually were one of the highly requested guests for these
Oh,
interviews
cool.
that I've been doing. So that's super cool. We reacted to some of your music on the channel. But for those people who are not familiar, the goal is to get you some new fans and, you know, shed some light to the fans that you already have on some things they may not know about you. So we're going to start from the beginning. What I ask all of my artist friends is, when did you fall in love with music?
I don't remember. I think I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day. It's like I never like stand over artists. You know, like a lot of people like, you know what I mean? Like obsess over a certain artist or something like that. I never went that far towards any particular artist. Like I had the people that I really love, but I never went like super fan. But I always went so deep into songs. Like I fell in love with just songs at a young age. And I remember just obsessing. I'll listen to the same song like 20 times in a row. And I can think back to even like, man, I don't know, like the Chronic 2001, or before that, obviously when Eminem came out, when Cypress Hill was big when I was younger too. I mean, they're still big, but they had like a resurgence of like some hits when I was younger, and like Rage Against the Machine and all this shit that was like coming out when I was younger. I fell in love with music at a super young age.
So do you think it was the art of storytelling, or what was it, or was it the actual sound, or what do you feel like caught your attention first and that really clicked and resonated with you?
For me, it was the feeling I would get when I listened to a song, and it's always been lyrics for me.
Okay.
Like I always like the way a song sounds and whatnot, but it's always the lyrics. And always, like, I think it always probably will be. Like I like dope beats and shit, obviously, but man, if you say something that resonates with me, like you'll have me for life, pretty much. You know, so when I listen to Eminem for the first time, like those lyrics were like, what the fuck is going on? Like this sounds like I'm listening to a comic book. You know what I mean? And it was like some completely animated, something new, something different, and the way people would say things and the way, you know, certain like rappers would bend words. I remember when I found Tupac, and I had this idea of Tupac without ever listening to his music, that it was just like gangster rap. You know what I mean? And back then I was super underground head. So I was like, you know, I was like Atmosphere, Jedi Mind Tricks, like super, super underground. And I was like, I kind of looked at Tupac as like mainstream just because I was naive and I was uneducated on Tupac. And I remember the first Tupac song I ever heard was Thug's Mansion. And the opening line of that song was like I got chills just now just thinking about it. Because like I remember like what it did to me and how it just took me down. And like Tupac's my favorite rapper, hands down. And just took me down this whole of like real emotional lyrics and people that talk about what's going on with them and the way they can do it in different ways. And it's incredible. So to me, it's always been the feeling.
That's very interesting, because I feel like, you know, different artists connect with different parts. So you had this feeling, you connected with the lyrics, and at what point were you like, this is what I want to do? I'm going to make the transition from being a fan into being an artist. At what point did you like, okay, I'm going to do this professionally, or did it start off as a hobby first?
It never really started off as like a hobby. I'm trying to think, because I would like write rhymes when I was younger, but I didn't really get into it until I went to rehab when I was 18. And when I was in rehab, I really started kind of like writing more, because I knew I always liked writing. When it even goes into, yeah, I like lyrics a lot, but I always like just writing in general, any kind. So I started writing, you know, just like slam poetry and random stuff when I was in rehab. And when I got out of rehab, I was like, maybe I should try this to some beats. I don't know if that's like a thing. And my brother at the time was trying to do some rap music, and he was making some beats. And I just grabbed a couple of his beats and started trying to write songs on them and figure it out. I had no idea what a 16 was. I heard rappers talk about it all the time. I was like, that's a hot 16, but I know what the fuck it was. You know what I mean? I didn't know, song structure or, how long a chorus should be, or post-chorus, pre-chorus, how to, drive the emotion of a song, and, all that kind of shit. I was just like, I'm just going to try doing this. And then I showed it to one friend of mine, and he didn't tell me I sucked, which he should have, because I've heard shit from back then. I'm like, why would you tell me to keep doing this?
Why didn't you tell me it was terrible? Like, why not? Like,
I was convinced that people just told me I was good, and for long enough until I got good at what I was doing,
No, I think that's part of the journey. I remember my first song that I wrote, everything was in the wrong spot. My hook was where the verse was supposed to be. Like, the verse was where the hook was supposed to be. Like, the first studio recording session I had found this engineer on Craigslist. Like,
yeah.
And, right? Hella, like, very, very sketch. It just happened to be a good person, but I knew better than like to go to somebody.
Lucky.
Right? I knew better than like go to somebody's house, but I was like, if I have them come to my parents' house, like I'll be safe. Like my dad's there, my mom's there, whatever, right? I'm like 16.
Yeah.
And so it came and we set up in my brother's room, and I booked the studio session. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. First time like rapping on a mic for like 6 hours. I had the songs already written, you know what I'm saying? I was ready to go. I never heard my voice before. Like, we ended up only getting, in my head, I was going to do 4 songs. I only ended up getting 1 song done.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And everything was in the wrong spot. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. But that person ended up being like really cool. He was like, I hear like some bars in here, blah, blah, blah. I think you should really, just work on your song structure. He was so nice about it. He was really nice about it. But yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible. But I think it was another thing where people, maybe they saw something in it that was good enough for them to tell me like, oh, this is kind of good. Like, you just keep going.
I think they just have bad taste.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a bad taste situation. But that's interesting. Though.
But it's like, even with like song structure, I look now and there's a lot of songs now that just say fuck song structure and do whatever they want. And those are like some things that I really love. And then so now it's like, man, fuck song structure. Do whatever you want. You can, you know what I mean? And maybe some of that is like beginner's luck of making something that's really, really cool because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You know what I mean?
I think I look back at those days and be like, the days where I didn't know about all of the rules and schematics about creating a song or certain types of songs. It was a lot of freedom in that sense, because you were just figuring stuff out. And so part of me kind of misses that aspect of just like figuring out things, because it's like, once you get a groove of what type of song you want to make, you're like, all right, I need this type of beat, I want blah 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 blah, I'm gonna have this type of hook. It's very like, it's not rigid. You still have this creative process, but at the same time, you know what you're doing. And I think some of the early stages of like making music is not knowing what you're doing. It's just being like, this is dope, I want to do it. Like, and I find
you have a process, and like once you develop a process, I have like a love-hate relationship with looking back on those days. I'm so fucking glad they're over, because it would take me so long to write a song, and I wouldn't necessarily know what I was doing. And my songwriting process has changed drastically over the years, and I'm finally to a place where I have a process that I can like plug stuff in and figure it out. And today, like, my favorite thing about songs is just figuring shit out, because for me, a lot of what songwriting is problem solving. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Running into a wall and figuring out how to make this thing work, or how to make this part work, and one part going to the next. But looking back on those days, all of the growing pains that got me here, and I'm, I know I'll look back on this time now, probably in a couple of years, and be like, man, I'm fucking glad that's over. You know what I mean? But looking back on those days, I'm like, man, if I would have known then what it would take to get here now, I don't know if I would have done it.
Right? Like,
I was so naive, and I thought that it was like, so much easier, or that there was different things that mattered, you know, in the whole music shit. And I'm glad I know now what I know, and I don't have to go back to that.
But
Like, if I had to
remember,
redo it, fuck, man. Like, if someone's like, we're gonna put you and just like restart you like Groundhog Day, I'd be like, no, I don't want to do it.
but remember the days we used to write a song and be like, "Oh, this is the one. I'm finna blow up off of this song." Like, and then come to find out now
I still do that shit.
there's the occasion that I'm like that, but it's like now that we have an awareness of how the system works and how much work that actually has to go into and the money behind blowing up, I just find it to be very interesting. So I wanted to know about like your perspective about being an independent artist. What are some of the walls that you've run into, and you know, what are some of the things, like positive things that you've experienced as being an independent artist as well?
The thing of being an independent artist, and if you do plan on being one, if you're one of those, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about this, and he was like, man, I just want to write songs. I was like, if you want to just write songs, like, that's probably the thing you're going to do the least in this whole thing. You know what I mean? Because that's I mean, I'm like different. I write like a lot, but I know a lot of my friends that don't write a lot that are also independent artists. A lot of your time goes into marketing, advertising, videos, post-production stuff, mixing, merch orders, figuring out tours, all that, you know, artwork, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it, it's always, every single part of that for me was a growing pain. And every single part of it, of my career, has kind of been like, if you're not going to help me, I'll figure it out myself. And I ran into most people that weren't going to help me. So I ended up just doing, you know, I learned how to do my artwork if I have to. I learned how to edit my videos if I have to. I learned how to, you know, mix my own tracks if I have to. I learned how to comp my own vocal if I have to. So you don't really need anybody else. But then it kind of, you know, it at one point it becomes a lot to juggle, and you don't want to lose, you know, sight of what is important, which is writing the songs, because that's what drives your entire, you know, career. That's what drives the fans. That's what drives your passion, or at least for me, that's what drives everything that I really want to do. So, you know, creative control is a big deal to me. I've had, you know, some offers sent my way that were always packaged to look nice, but at the end of the day, it's someone else taking all your shit and, you know, trying to tell you what to do and what you can put out and how you want it, how you should look. And it's, you know, for me, I don't know if I'll be independent forever. If there's a good deal, obviously anybody would take it. I'm not egotistical enough to think someone should send me some massive, crazy deal. But the best thing about being independent is knowing you don't need anybody else. And you can figure it out on your own. And anybody can. If you just stay consistent and keep doing what works and you stick to your guns. I think that's the hardest thing to do. I mean, you know, when something's not necessarily working, it's hard to stick to the plan, you know, and keep putting stuff out, even though it's not, maybe it's just making little waves, little tiny waves, but it's hard to stick to that when you want instant gratification and you see everybody else is popping off and everybody else is doing stuff. And it's just sticking to that is what's the most important thing, in that consistency. And you can do that as an independent artist, but if you're on a label, you're now in their system and in their cycle of when they want you to release and when you need to put shit out. And labels don't always know anything. If you look historically, labels are always behind. You know what I mean? They're always the last to figure it out. Apple shouldn't have a fucking monopoly on digital music, as far, you know what I mean? iTunes, why is it third? You know what I mean? Why didn't a label think of this?
Come up with streaming.
Labels, like, you know, music's never going to go digital type shit. You know, they're always kind of last to show up and then just kind of scramble to make more money on whatever's popular at the moment. So I don't necessarily think it's always smart to depend on anyone else to tell you what's hot or what's the move to make, you know?
I agree. I agree. So what I've noticed in a lot of your songs is there's this like influence of like comics or like movies or like special like superhero characters. Like where did that come from? And why is that important to you? And why do you continue to do it today?
So it's interesting because when I first started making music, when I first started writing, I was, and I think this is with a lot of people. I don't know if it's like the same with you, but when I first started writing, I was just a bad imitation of the rappers I listened to.
Yeah,
You
I
know what
can
I mean?
agree.
Back then, I would have told you that's not true. And when people said it to me, I was like, fuck that, I'm my own thing. But the truth is, I think anybody that starts off as a bad imitation of whatever they look up to or whatever they listen to or whatever like creative thing you're into, if you're painting or writing or whatever it is, I'm sure a lot of people have the same thing. So I was just a bad imitation of like people like Slug and Vinny Paz and Tech Nine and all these people that I listened to. And, you know, eventually started to find myself with the more songs that I made and the more I listened back and the more I just dove into my own creative process. And I started working with an engineer in LA. And this guy, I had a pretty bad experience early on. He's a good dude, and I still like him, and we're still friends. But I don't think he knew what he was doing at the time, and tried developing me,
Hmm.
and kind of developed me in the way he wanted to. And up till that point, I'd kind of always gone with my gut, and always gone with what I thought I should do, and it was working out on a small scale, but it was always working out, and I was always happy with what I was doing. And when I started going into his idea of what I should do and changing things a little bit, I wasn't happy and I started questioning myself. And, you know, then I got basically shut. He got hired by like Benji and Joel Madden to like do a bunch of their shit. And I pretty much got shelved by this dude. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? You know, now I put myself in a position where I need somebody else. And I don't know what to do. And so I just started writing what I wanted to write. You know what I mean? And writing about the shit that I like and the things that make me happy and writing the things that I didn't hear anybody else writing about. Uh, you know, when I talk to my friends about like movies I like and shit that I like and shit that we listen to and shit that we watch, I I didn't hear a lot of people talking about it. And if I did, I was like, well, this isn't like cool. You know what I mean? Nerd rap wasn't cool. It was still nerdy as fuck, which was dope to me. But I was like, what about the, you know what I mean? The movies are starting to get more cool, more mainstream. Like, why doesn't the music move in the same way? And I've always been a big fan of like Kevin Smith. I don't know if you know who Kevin Smith is, but
I'll check it
if
out.
you've ever seen a movie like Clerks or Mallrats
Okay.
or like Dogma or Chasing Amy, anything like this, like this dude is like old school, been nerd fandom for a long time. And I remember him saying that he started writing this in his movies because he didn't hear anybody else talking about it in movies. And he was like, well, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. And so that was kind of what it was. And I was like, I'm just going to do if I have one more shot at doing this, I'm just going to do it the way I want to do it and talk about what I want to talk about all the time. And I've always been the kind of artist that's going to talk about whatever I feel. And so if I'm into some shit at some time, I'm going to talk about it. And if it's some super emo songs, I'm going to talk about it. If it's some super aggressive songs, I'm going to talk about it. I'm not going to put myself in a box of like, well, this is my sound. My sound is kind of whatever I'm feeling at the moment, you know?
I like that. I definitely like that. And I can definitely relate to that in the sense of I feel like as artists, the best thing we can do is to be true to ourselves in our experiences. And when we try to force that or we try to force making something else, it comes off as unauthentic. And so I think being our authentic selves is the best because when your fans can relate to that, it's because they have similar experiences as you. So I think that's super dope. So you touched on it briefly, but it seems like you've had, very like almost like 3, 4 lives in one lifetime. So you talked about you talked about going to rehab at 18, which to me is like a young age. So talk about like that chapter of your life and how has it influenced you like in moving forward?
That was a dark chapter in my life. I, uh, well, I ever since I can remember, I've always wanted to change the way I feel. and I always wanted to feel better than I felt. You know, I was always trying to control the way I feel. And I started using drugs on it like really early on. So like 12 years old, 12 years old, I started smoking weed. Um, Pretty early on after that, moved on to like psychedelics and pills, and addiction kind of runs in my family. I didn't know at the time. I didn't learn that until years later after I got sober that addiction ran in my family. But and I just, you know, got caught up with the wrong people. I always looked up to like criminals. You know what I mean? I always looked up to dudes that were, you know, selling drugs and doing fucked up shit and robbing people. And I don't know what in me when I was younger looked up. I mean, I still look up to, I still think that shit's cool. I can't help it. Like, dude, my car got robbed on my driveway. You know what I mean? And I used to
Vegas
rob
though.
cars.
That's Vegas.
That's true. I used to rob cars when I was younger. And my car got broken into like 6 months ago. And I was like, who the fuck does this? And I was like, wait, what am I talking about? Like,
You
I did
used
that
to
shit.
do it. Like,
You know what I mean? And so like I can't be mad. It's like, you know, universal karma hitting me. But yeah, so when I was younger, like I was hanging out with, you know, older kids that were doing, you know, crazy shit, and hanging out at skate parks with, you know, like wild gangs of kids that were out here. And you know, Oxycontin was huge when I was in high school, and I got hooked on oxys at, I don't know, probably like 15. I was hooked on oxys, and then heroin became the thing, and it was cheaper and easier to get, and I just got hooked on that at like 16. And heroin and coke was my thing for a long time. And I just got to a point after, you know, a couple years and fucking over everybody in my life, and ended up, you know, homeless, living out of my car, and facing like jail time or rehab. And it was like, all right, well, I'll just go to rehab. You know what I mean? I don't want to go to jail. So went to rehab when I was 18, and somehow, some way, I don't know, there was a counselor in there that kind of just was able to kind of break through and get to me. And, you know, when I got out of rehab, I was like pretty close to a relapse. And then I met someone who was my age, who was sober, and was like, cool. And I was like, well, fuck it. All right, I can hang out with this guy. And thankfully, I like stuck around recovery long enough to kind of get it. And, you know, been sober ever since.
wow, that's an incredible story. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I feel like, you know, that I think you overcoming that, it was probably, if anything, it was just like it was a preparation for everything that, you know, you have to endure being an artist, and all the obstacles that you have to overcome. If you can overcome that, then as far as the road to success, I mean, you
Yeah,
had determination.
yeah. I think you're right. I think there's also there's a few roadblocks that being sober puts in your way in the music business.
Yeah. I was a sober kid for a while. Well, because I got in the industry like not young, but younger, if that makes any sense. Like when I was on 106 in Park, when I really started like touring, I was around like 19. So I was around a lot of older people. I was in clubs because I had to promote my music and stuff like that, but I wasn't drinking or doing anything. So like I can understand what you're saying. And it's like the environment that you're put in the industry are not the most sober, to say the least. Like
Well, ever since, like, even my whole thing with getting sober is like, I'm going to get sober, but I'm not going to let this stop me from doing anything. I'm not going to let this keep me from any opportunity. I'm not even music wise, but just like, I'm not going to not go to bars or clubs with my friends because I'm sober. Like, if I'm sober, the reason for me being sober is so I can live my life. You know what I mean? If I can't do it, what's the point? So I've always, like, my biggest pet peeve is if someone like calls me straight edge or some shit like that, because I'm not straight. Like, my friends are like deplorable fucking human beings, and I love them. You know what I mean? So, but it's hard when I first. So if I go on tour with someone, there's like a little. It's easier to connect with people that you don't know through a means of drinking or getting fucked up, and then there's like a bonding experience that happens, especially on tour, because tour's like party time, you know. And if you're not getting fucked up, it's almost like, well, how do you connect with these people who are here on a different, you know, they have kind of different plans of shit to do. So it always takes a few more steps than it would if I was drinking or still getting fucked up. There's just a different avenue I need to connect through that's not through that way of bonding, which for me is sometimes harder because I'm not necessarily the most socially butterfly type person. So it's always more difficult. But I have noticed that it's also, those relationships are real relationships, and it's not really built around getting fucked up or partying or whatever. And also I can hang in any party situation. You know what I mean? It's always, I can hang with the best of them, you know what I mean? And just drive everybody home. And, you know, when my fucking DJ has alcohol poisoning, make sure he doesn't die.
You know, there are benefits. There are definite benefits that you need to put on. You know what I'm saying? On your rider, you'd be like, designated driver every time. I could definitely relate to that for sure. So like moving forward, let's talk about all the new music you got going on. Like what is next for you over the rest of the year?
I mean, I think you probably know it's like singles market, just dropping songs right now. So I dropped like, how many songs was that? Probably, I've dropped a bunch of songs in the last year. So now the album is ready. I dropped a lot of singles heading towards an album. It's called The Detour 2. And so that's going to drop July 10th. I announced tomorrow, so I can say it. So the album will drop July 10th. Yeah. So it's like all the singles up to this point, plus like I think 6 brand new songs, all kind of packaged together and put out. So that album will come out on July 10th, and I have the next album pretty much done, and then a few singles in between that I want to drop. So it's just going to be continuing to just drop song after song. And I always have a plan of like singles that I'm dropping, and then stuff in the world will pop up, and then I'll end up writing something and dropping. Like I just did a song, Why Aren't You Angry? And put that out just because I felt like I wanted to, I needed to. So it's just, for me, it's just continuing to put out songs and content and try building up as far as it can go and see what happens.
And hopefully, you know, I don't think we're getting back on tour this year, big dog. I think it might be next year.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's unfortunate, man. I don't like live stream shows. I don't really fuck with it, but I think I'm going to do one because everybody's been asking me to do one. So when I put out the album, I'm probably going to do a live stream show. But I just want to get back on the road. But yeah, I don't think that's just going to happen until next year.
Like, I don't think it's happening. I was thinking to myself too. I was like, I might have to do an album like show, like have it recorded and everything, and like get a band. I feel like that might be like a cool vibe to like create that atmosphere. I was thinking about
like a pre-recorded one to put out.
Like a pre-recorded one. And so here's you know, I've been giving my other independent artists this gym, right? So I got this idea. And so I'm thinking like, okay, so you pre-record the whole show, like a whole concert, but like so you get whatever, it's like a rehearsal studio, maybe you get a band, get a DJ, pre-record that. And then on your website, you sell it on your website, and you have people pay like whatever if you want to charge for it. And then it downloads and they get to watch the whole show. So it's almost like you're selling a show, like a concert, but like they get to have it as an experience. So I'm thinking
I did a pre-recorded thing for my home. My homies in Twisted, they did like this whole big YouTube show thing and asked me to do a couple songs. So that's what I did. I just pre-recorded in a rehearsal studio and just gave it to them. And it was super dope. And I was like, why don't I just do a live stream from here?
You could do that too. Yeah, for sure. But I was thinking that, like, the reason why I said sell it is because for people who are not able to tour, and touring is like their main source of income, that could be another way of them, you know, touring, like having a whole show.
You're not going to do any drive-in shows?
I don't know about that. I just
weird
like
thing.
Maybe. I'm not gonna say, look, this is apocalypse, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying never, because had we've been talking this time last year, I was like, oh hell no, they're not finna shut down nothing. Like, here we are now. Like,
I know some people are doing the drive-in shows. I just think I don't know, it sounds weird.
I feel like the whole honk for a response thing is maybe if people like had pickup trucks or something like, and everybody was in a pickup truck or whatever, because then you could like all be in the back of the pickup truck and like we could still kind of have a concert vibe. Like, but I feel like the whole point, if for me, it's like if we're not gonna have a concert vibe, then I would rather just not have people there. Like, because I feel like it's gonna be an awkward interaction.
I feel like it's only a matter of time before people jump out of their cars and just run up to the stage and they're like, I just want to have a regular fucking show.
That part. And people are like, I'm gonna roll the dice. Like,
but it's weird because it's like there's gatherings of 50 or more that you can't have gatherings of 50 or more, right? But have you been on an airplane since?
No, but that to me is like, that's dumb. And then the gyms are open and I'm like, okay, so that's really, that's the last place I want to be at. First of all, it's wet everywhere. You're touching all these surfaces. It's like, if you know anything about the disease, it lives in cold, wet surfaces. That is the gym. Why would I go to the gym right now? I will work out at home. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, and then of course you got all the conspiracy theories. I'm not even gonna get into all that, but
not enough time in the day.
This is not enough time. I don't know. But I hope. My hope is that. Well, here's what I said. I said that when the NBA gets fans back in the arena, then I'll feel comfortable touring, because they were the first to cut their stuff off. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like they're probably gonna be the last to let people back in. And
that's probably true. And it's, dude, I was on a plane. I had to fly to Atlanta to finish this album. And it was like, this was like a month and a half ago, maybe even longer. And the plane was fucking packed. I was like, why am I wearing a face mask right now? It's like air is recirculating. None of this makes any fucking sense. Like, what's the point? And there was like 3 rows on each side that were empty at the front of the plane. It was all like first class shit. And everybody's like, yo, can we move some people's like to those seats? So, you know, we can like break it up a little bit. And they're like, it's an upgrade. It's like $100 if you want to move. I was like, this is insane.
First of all, you're on the plane, bro. Nobody's, where's the upgrade police at? You're on the plane too. You should want everybody to spread out. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
It's wild.
So I'm like, if you can do that, just do a fucking show. Who cares?
You know, but it's just, there's so much money in planes. And that's really what it boils down to. They don't want people to stop doing planes because the airplane industry, I mean, that's a lot of money. Traveling, tourist stuff, that's a lot of money. They're not going to do that. But then we get into conspiracy theories. But anyway.
Exactly.
So hopefully we'll be back on tour next year. Make sure so shout out all your socials so everybody knows where to follow you at.
Everything is at Ekoh Music. It's EKOH Music.
All right, so you heard it here first. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate the homie Ekoh for coming through. Make sure you check out all his new music. Follow him on all his socials. Otherwise, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to cough on you. No, I'm just kidding. We love you guys. We'll see you next time.